Hello everyone, welcome back to the Unofficial Zoo. My name is Zach, and today I want to talk a bit about how to successfully breed shrimp, and more specifically, some common issues that you might be having if you're new to the shrimp keeping hobby, or just have a new shrimp tank set up. Now, shrimp are very finicky creatures. They require very specific parameters. They require stability of their water parameters and of their environment as a whole. So there can be a lot of things that are kind of invisible that are preventing them from really thriving and reproducing. That said, once you get breeding going, it's pretty hard to stop. And you can pretty quickly go from 20 shrimp to hundreds of shrimp in 3 to 6 months. I've done that repeatedly. So let's get into it and let's figure out how we can get your shrimp tanks producing babies. Now, the first thing to talk about is if you've just gotten the shrimp, you should wait 3 months before you take any action to try to encourage breeding. Now, there are a couple reasons that I say this. One is that if you had your shrimp shipped to you, they are probably just too young to breed. Most of the time, you're going to get very young juveniles in the mail. Now, there are a couple reasons for this. One is that smaller shrimp have lower bio loads, so you can fit more in the bag without risking deaths during transit. Another reason for this is that younger shrimp are said to acclimate to new environments better. I don't personally know if this is true, but this is something that's commonly referenced. So in both of these cases, you just need to give your shrimp time to grow up and time to settle down. When it comes to keeping shrimp, probably the most important thing is maintaining stable water parameters and a stable environment. So when you are moving shrimp from a breeder or a seller into your new aquarium, that's a big adjustment. So it's going to take time for them to just calm down, settle down, and adjust. So don't take any more action in the first 3 months because, if they are just needing time to adjust and you start changing things before that 3-month period, that's just going to stress them out more and it's going to delay your success in breeding them. So that's the first thing. Give it some time, be patient. Now, if you've crossed the 3-month mark, let's continue talking and see if we can figure out what's going on and how to get your shrimp breeding for you. The next thing I want to talk about, which is a super easy error, is that you just might not have enough shrimp for your aquarium. I often, and a lot of people will recommend that you start a shrimp tank with at least 20 gallons, just because, again, coming back to that stability thing, a larger aquarium is going to be more stable in the long run, and it's going to be a lot easier to maintain for you. That said, if you only have 2 or 5 or maybe even 10 shrimp in a 20-gallon aquarium, it just might not be enough population to really get breeding going. Now, the reasoning around this is specifically with how, it comes down to specifically how freshwater shrimp mate. So almost all the time, mating cannot happen with a male and a female because the female shell is too hard. So mating can only really happen within a few hours after a female has molted, because within this few hour period, the shell is soft enough for a male to successfully fertilize the eggs. However, females don't want to be mated, and actually right after molting for the next day or two, they will go hide away in whatever little crevice or space that they can find, because having a soft shell makes them very vulnerable to predation. So if you don't have enough shrimp, and specifically enough males in the tank to be there when a female molts and to be ready to mate with her right after she molts, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get fertilization, you're not going to get eggs, and you're not going to have baby shrimp. So first thing I would do is make sure that you have at least 1 shrimp per gallon of water. That's generally a good place to start. If you have enough shrimp and you're saying, Zach, I have the shrimp, I've had them for 3 months, they're still not breeding, what's going on? What can I do? The next thing is we should be talking about your water parameters. And this can be a little bit confusing because, maybe your tank even follows the generally recommended water parameters that you've read online. Maybe you're keeping Caridina shrimp, and online you read something that says, you need to keep these shrimp between 6.4 and 6.8, and a certain GH and certain KH, and you're meeting that entirely, but they're just not breeding for you. So Zach, what is going on with my tank, with my shrimp? And here's what might be happening. I think we often forget that selective breeding applies to more things than just colors and patterns. While we have produced some amazing colors and patterns by, selecting shrimp that are beautiful and then breeding them together to try to get those patterns to transfer to the babies, something else that can happen is you can selectively breed for water parameters. To give a concrete example of this, I have an aquarium filled with Bloody Mary shrimp, so those are Neocaridina. Most people are going to say that they need a pH of, above 7, maybe around 7.5, and, certain GH, certain KH that doesn't follow the same as Caridina. I, however, breed my Bloody Marys in a pH of 5.3, which is much, much lower than is recommended, and with much softer, much lower alkalinity water than is recommended. And the reason I can do this is because over a series of generations, I have selectively bred shrimp that do better in these softer, more acidic water parameters. So even if you're following the generally recommended guidelines for water parameters for whatever shrimp you're keeping, your breeder might have bred them in different water. So you should talk to your breeder, whoever you bought the shrimp from, and ask them, hey, like what's your pH, GH, KH, what's the TDS of your water, and what's the temperature of your water, and make sure that your tank matches what they tell you. Because more important than generalized guidelines across the hobby is what water parameters your shrimp were born in and were raised in. If they had success with whatever water parameters they're using, you are much more likely to have success by mimicking their water parameters and, maybe even using the same substrate as they use than you are by trying to create the ideal parameters that you read about online. Okay, so let's say that, you've met the same water parameters or very similar water parameters to whoever you got the shrimp from. You have very stable water, and, you've had the shrimp for at least 3 months, and you know for a fact that they're old enough to mate. So now what's next? Well, I think the next thing that often gets overlooked is that your temperature might not be high enough. This is something that I actually encountered and learned about while I was keeping horseshoe crabs, not shrimp. But temperature plays a big, big role on the life cycle of your shrimp tank. Specifically that at lower temperatures, your shrimp kind of slow down. Their whole life process slows down to the point where you can actually, like if you kept crystal red shrimp at 65 degrees for their entire lives, while most people say crystal red shrimp will live for 2.5 years, your shrimp could live 3 to 4 years because their bodily processes will slow down and their metabolism will slow down. So the other thing about having too low a temperature is it can stop breeding. When everything else slows down, so does breeding, sometimes to a complete halt. So if your shrimp aren't breeding, take the temperature of the tank. Know what your water temperature is. If it is 71 or lower, your shrimp might not be breeding as quickly as they could be. And that's not to say that they can't breed. I know for a fact that Caridina and Neocaridina can and will breed at as low as 68 I know of. It just might be infrequent or irregular, and some shrimp just may not breed at all. So if your tank temperature is a little bit low, I would throw in a heater. I personally will use an underpowered heater so that there's no risk of accidentally boiling the tank or boiling my shrimp. But I will throw a heater in there and raise the temperature very slowly, maybe 1 degree Fahrenheit every day or two, until I get somewhere around 73, 74 degrees. Now you can safely go up to 78 degrees before you start seeing adverse effects, but remember what I said about life cycle and temperature. As you increase the temperature, your shrimp will grow and also die more quickly. So don't go too high and don't go above 78 because over 78 you start seeing problems. But yeah, I would raise your tank temperature to maybe around 74 degrees. That's actually what I've done in this tank because I was starting with fewer shrimp. I started with like 50 shrimp in a 75-gallon aquarium. So I raised the temperature just to get breeding going a little bit faster for them. So you may want to try increasing the temperature for a little bit. And I would maintain the increased temperature for a few weeks. And, if you're not seeing buried females with eggs after 2 months, again, maybe just pull the heater, try something else. Something that's going to be a little bit less common is that your shrimp might just not be eating enough. Now, again, if you're keeping 1 shrimp per gallon at first, this probably isn't going to be an issue for you. And this is generally more of an issue for baby shrimp. But females do often need a good amount of protein in their diet to be able to successfully breed and have eggs. So if you are not feeding a good high protein food, you may want to switch to something like Shrimp King Complete or Fluval Shrimp Granules. There are a lot of options out there. But that might be something to consider is trying to add more protein to your shrimp's diet. Something else that, again, I have seen help with breeding is adding increased decorations. If your tank is too bare, your female shrimp just might not feel as comfortable having babies. Now, this isn't something that has been as robustly scientifically studied or proven, but I think you will find anecdotal evidence, and I will provide some of my own experience here, just saying that my female shrimp do better with breeding when I provide hides. Now, quick, easy solution, throw in some Indian almond leaves. These are great for a lot of reasons. I've mentioned them in other videos, but Indian almond leaves are a great option. Various types of wood. This is Mopani wood. Just places for your shrimp to naturally go and hide. They're going to feel more comfortable. They're going to be more likely to breed. Quick, easy thing. If your tank's bare, just spice it up a little bit. Especially, add plants and things. So as for like common, easy to treat things, that's probably what's going to prevent at least 50 or 60% of breeding for new shrimp keepers. If you've tried all of this and nothing is working, like, Zach, like, come on, like, what else can I do? They're still not breeding. My water parameters match the breeder. I've increased the temperature. They're still not breeding. I'm feeding them a good high protein diet. The tank is well decorated. They have plenty of places to hide and graze. Something else that you might want to try is a water change. Especially if you do a water change with water that's a little bit softer and a little bit purer than your tank water. Now, the reason behind this is in the wild, often in spring when breeding season starts for wild Caridina and Neocaridina shrimp, there's an influx of fresh rainwater or snow melt into the environment. So the water will quickly soften up. And so sometimes really all you need to get breeding going is just to do a nice 20% water change. I would not recommend trying this more than once because unless your water's really out of whack and you haven't done a water change for a long, long time. But I wouldn't recommend doing this too much because, again, the most important thing with shrimp is generally keeping very stable water parameters. But if you tried everything else, a 20% water change, not a bad idea. And the other thing is, again, like with temperature, even if your temp is 72 to 74, maybe just try bumping it up a couple degrees. As long as you're not 78 plus, it still might help just encourage kind of that natural progression of their life cycle into, oh, hey, it's time to breed. Well, that is it. That's what I have for you. I think, again, for the majority of people, this will help. These are going to be things that maybe you didn't realize are affecting your shrimp, but that are generally pretty easy to fix. Once you've started breeding your shrimp and you've had them breeding for a little while and you've expanded into maybe a few aquariums, you'll find that there is a pretty set formula for how to breed these shrimp, and I actually just did a video on that. So go watch that if you're still learning about how to set up your shrimp tank. But hopefully this helps get your shrimp going. If not, leave me a comment. I would love to hear about what's going on with your shrimp and try to figure out with you how we can best get your shrimp breeding because it is super rewarding to have them start breeding. And I fully realize that this video is going to help a lot of people, but it's not going to help everyone. So, if you're still having problems, drop me a comment, let me know. Let's talk about it and let's see if we can, figure out what's going on. And maybe I'll even do a video about it. Or alternatively, if you have other tips for, new shrimp keepers, or you had something else happen to your tank and you successfully resolved it, let me know in the comments. I would love to spread more information. I think the more we come together as a community and the more information we share together, the better the hobby as a whole. So let me know down in the comments. Give this video a like if you liked it. And if you want to see more from me and learn more about shrimp and the shrimp I keep, feel free to subscribe. I would love it if you subscribed, but no pressure, of course. So thank you everyone for watching and have a great day. Bye everyone.